Being irrationally strong-willed is saying to yourself, just be honest that out is not an option. Let's get to $10 million ARR and then we raise money. That's a conditional rule. Now, if the company really goes to the ground, will I raise money? Yes, but don't think of it that way. Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. By way of introduction, I'm Perry Zhang, founder and CEO of a YC-backed startup. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most important, if not the most important trait of being a startup founder. And I only got to observe this in the last few months. And we have graduated from YC about 3 years ago. And the startup exists for about 4 years. When you're becoming an entrepreneur, a lot of my friends have come to me in the last couple years about either getting a reference to YC or asking me for advice. And usually the last question is, Perry, if you have to summarize one thing, what do you think is the most important trait of being a successful founder? Because I want my company to be successful. And I give sometimes different answers based on where they are. One of the answers I give is, make sure you work on your company for a minimum of 2 years before calling it quits. If you don't have any customers after 6 months, don't quit. If you don't have customers after 1 year, don't quit yet. And if you still don't have customers after 2 years, then you earn the right to quit. So that's one thing I did. But the other thing, which I never really explicitly said out loud, which I'm going to say it out loud here, is I believe one of the most important traits, if not the most important trait of being a successful startup founder, is to be irrationally strong-willed. So what does that mean? It means you can lose everything in a startup, but until you call it quits, the startup never dies. And what is strong will? Strong will is this mindset of, it's like a guard dog that prevents the worst coming into the house. It's like a guard dog. It just hangs out at the front of the house. And if they say you cannot come in, no enemy can come in. It's a very binary thing. Either you let it come in and destroy the company, or that you're doing whatever you can such that the company is not in a failure state. And I've been a YC startup founder for 4+ years now. And I think being irrationally strong-willed is the most important necessary requirement. It's not the only necessary requirement. There are other necessary requirements such being intelligent, being high work ethic, and so on. But it's the most important. Doesn't mean that as long as you're strong-willed, your company will succeed. But out of all the traits, this is the trait that seems to be the most important among all the necessary traits. And that's because most founders die on this hill, which is they give up. Or they give up without knowing that they have given up. So let me give an example to make this a little bit more clear. What our company does is a real estate investor management software. And real estate, especially commercial real estate, has gone through a lot of volatility in the last 3-4 years. So this is like the worst time to start a prop tech company. Companies that have gone IPO, like Opendoor and Blend, BLEND, basically have like taken a tank on their stock. So the last 3 years have been very difficult for the startup. And so I saw lots of small business, commercial real estate general partners churn because they simply couldn't raise any money and they exited the business. They in fact went back to their full-time jobs and no longer are GPs. It was even made more intense in the last second half of last year, 2025. And our growth was not very good. Like, we're growing, but we're not growing like tremendously fast. What does it mean to be strong-willed in those instances? Investors don't complain. Investors also don't write back and offer words of encouragement. And so one of the decisions is, do I raise more money to keep the company going? Or do I do a layoff to let people go? So the last few months have been one of the toughest times in my entrepreneurial journey. The investors don't complain by any stretch, but they also don't offer like words of encouragement. To be irrationally strong-willed means that I need to make a conscious decision that I don't rely on the investors. I could raise money. In fact, I have raised tens of millions of dollars. I'm good at raising money. But because I'm good at raising money, I don't want to use that as an out. So a lot of people say, well, if you feel like you are still not profitable, and why don't you raise more money so that you can ride through this wave? It sounds really good, but it's a terrible mistake because it still makes you depend on something else other than your effort. Being irrationally strong-willed as a founder means on this problem, I could depend on my investors, but due to a variety of reasons, they also know the macroeconomic conditions. They also know that this is not a unicorn. They also know at this point in time, they don't see it. And so that's not an out at this point in time, maybe in the future. And so it is being intellectually honest that that path in the decision matrix is out of the window. This actually reminds me of one of those character traits. It's one of my pet peeves when people say the following. They either say, Perry, you have raised money before. Why don't you raise more money so that we can have more cash flow and so we can sustain burning money? Whereas the right decision is to get to profitability, which we can, but you have to get there. But they're like, let's raise more money so we can hire more people. That's where the disconnect. The other pet peeve is like, this product doesn't work. Let's do more marketing. This is usually coming from the engineers. I don't think this is an engineering problem. I think we need more marketing. And then this is also sometimes coming from executives back in the day where they're like, oh, this product needs a lot of marketing. And I'm like, this is all true. But your role is to execute the product and implement the product or sell. And you are making an excuse that's not your domain expertise. They are always using something as the crutch to succeed. As if this doesn't succeed, it's not their fault. And I know this sounds terrible. I'm not saying that the employees are at fault. I'm saying that mindset will make a very bad founder. Because a bad founder will be like, well, the economy is not doing well. I cannot raise more money from investors. And that thing doesn't work. That thing doesn't work. I'm like, screw. But I'm going to make my best to get the money out of my investors and raise more money. Being irrationally strong-willed is saying to yourself, just be honest that out is not an option. Let's get to $10 million ARR and then we raise money. That's a conditional rule. Now, if the company really goes to the ground, will I raise money? Yes, but don't think of it that way. I hope that makes sense because if you keep thinking about having a crutch somewhere out there, you just always never really look deep enough within to get the last piece of courage out of you. That's really important. When the growth was slow, let's also talk about the employees and just the general sentiment. Employees are bought into the company, but they also are self-interested, like all employees, including myself. When the company is at its plateauing or not growing as fast or, still burning money and becoming not profitable, the founder has one of two choices. They can delegate the problem to the employees and say, hey, guys, let's rally and let's solve this problem. When that becomes true, you are essentially delegating the outcome to the employees. You're delegating the strategy to the employees. When the employees know that, they're going for the exit. Because while they care a lot about a company, they also care about their equity in the company. While they want the company to survive, if it's not going anywhere, they're like, yeah, if I measure this against the other company, I'm definitely going to Amazon or going back to Amazon or Facebook. So what the founders should not do is to depend on the employees as if the employees can help you get out of the slump. It doesn't mean you don't let the employees execute. There's a big difference between those two seemingly paradoxical statements. What you do is there needs to be a strategy, and that strategy is deep within you, and that comes from your will. And that's usually not what the employees want. Let me give a very interesting analogy. A company is like a body, and the eyes and the skin are like the CEO because that's their way of communicating with the world. Because those are the only pores, quote unquote, in the human body that can interact with the outside world. The cells in your lungs, in your stomach and muscle and your liver, they are like the employees. They have been perpetually live in a dark room. Like they don't know the outside world. Their only way of knowing the world is through your eyes and your skin, through the CEO's communication. Do you need them to survive? Absolutely. But do they know how to coordinate without the eyes and the skin and your brain? Absolutely no. So you cannot be like, I give up, I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to let the body just do its thing. Let's suppose getting to profitability is like running a marathon. You don't check in with the lung and say, hey, lung, how much can you run more? Like you don't exactly say, hey, muscle, how much can you give me? You don't ask that. You ask, we need to run a marathon. What can I do to conditionally get you better so that we run a marathon? And the lung doesn't say, well, like I have only run like 10 miles before in one continuous stretch. There's no way I can run 26. And you're like, doesn't matter. We're doing it. You see the difference? You don't check in with them. Hey, what is your limit? You say, this is the goal. Are you in or are you not in? And usually your lung, your muscle, and your liver, once you make the vision super clear, they're gonna follow along. And if they don't follow along, your mindset is, we're doing it anyway. You are so strong-willed that somehow that creates the attraction to let people come along with you. And you're not like trying to do that to manipulate people. It's just that it's almost like don't work bottoms up. Don't check in with the components of the body to see, what you're capable of. You set a vision and then people just gradually rally. The muscles and the liver and the lungs and the stomach, they have no idea what's going on in the world, but they're saying the brain is telling me to run, so we better just get going. See, there's a huge difference between those two mindsets. The last few months have been a perfect example of this. We don't get any criticism from our investors. We have great investors. And I also don't get like that many encouragements from my employees. Like as an entrepreneur, when things are not going that well, you're super lonely. And you can either depend on them, outsource everything to people around you, whether depend on investors to raise money or ask the employees to figure out what's the next step. Or you look within, deep within yourself and find that convincing energy to execute. And usually that energy comes from a vision. What I'm saying is when most people don't believe you, that's when the founder is the clearest with its vision. And nobody at that time talks about the vision, but the founder is like, I think in the last 3 or 6 months, that's when I know I'm more confident than ever before. I know exactly what we need to do. I know exactly what should happen in the end state. And yet at that precise moment, I know nobody is really thinking that way. Let me give an example. I'm pretty sure in the 2008 crisis, nobody thought Tesla and SpaceX were either electric car transformation or going to Mars. They were thinking this company is about to die. But I think at that moment, the person that believes in the vision is the person that basically like, I have no other help. And the only help I have is I think this is worth doing. So I will do it. And whether everyone comes along, it's up to them. So what that translates into is that at those times, you're going to make decisions that seem very abrupt. You're going to make, probably as the founder and CEO, you're going to make decisions that just like, wow, this guy's going crazy. Like he just like making blah, blah, blah. He either makes a cut or he makes a pivot. But these things are really embedded with him, like his strong will. It happened to me too, where I vividly acknowledge in the last 3 months, I have given multiple constructive feedback to multiple people of like, hey, you are delivering this too late. You take about a week to do X, but it should happen 72 hours. So do it in 72 hours. Because for the first time, I don't feel ashamed of like asking for what I want. It's just like, I know that's the vision. These are the ingredients needed to paint that picture. And so I'm doing it. Are you in or are you out? That's an example of strong will. And maybe you don't start with that, just to be clear. You don't start with that in your first like couple years. In fact, recently, a person that has known me for some time from the conferences has joined the company. And I asked them, what do you observe to be the difference between what you thought you know about me and then what you saw within the company? And then they said, we always known you to be like super friendly, super chill, super laid back. But I think I got to see a really intense side of you. And I said, I think that is the real me. And that also explained why some friends who were in the company said, Perry, you were totally different at work. And I said, that's probably the real me, because once it gets into a state where it crosses the boundary of like my self-interest is at stake, this irrational strong willingness to just get it done comes out. I have no idea how that came from my childhood. I just have it. And I do believe because of it, the company just never dies. It just couldn't die. I don't know how to describe it. It just means that I cannot see a way that I will let this thing die. Now, the company has the best month ever. And so we're like far from dying. This month is actually a record high new month for us. And our growth rate has actually inflected in growing faster than ever before. So both the absolute value and the growth rate has become way better. And it's probably because I'm like, we are doing it. And are you coming or are you not coming with me? I want to talk about some of the negatives. This is a character trait. People call it persistence. People call it grit. But I just call it strong will. And you kind of wait until the right moment for this thing to surface. And you never know if you have it or you don't have it. But I want to point out that it's not all positive to have this. And the example I can think of is my parents have told me that like you are very demanding about the quality of work. And it is incredibly difficult for anyone to live with you 24/7. If a friend saw you and every 3 months, they will respect and admire you because you get a lot of things done in those 3 months every time they see you. They probably admire your time management and your execution. But it's one thing to admire you from afar based on your execution ability versus being part of the house where the execution is happening. You see the difference? If you have this kind of demanding attitude in all aspects of your life, your spouse is gonna not be happy, because a good marriage is lots of give and take, lots of compromise. And with this kind of attitude, it's really hard. And yes, I see that. And that's why last year I got into Chinese metaphysics. I'm basically like, I'm a water element, and my right underneath, which is my family, my spouse element, is another water. So that water means it's my water, right? So it means I have a strong root. And people with a strong root are super strong-willed, and it's becoming very obvious that I am. But imagine that that house that makes up your family consists of all water. So this is water, and which gives me a lot of resources and makes me strong-willed and so on. For a man with a water element, their wife is represented by fire because water controls fire. If the house is all water and my wife is fire, and specifically not sunlight fire, more like candle fire, the candle fire cannot survive in that environment. It's crazy that like somehow in Chinese metaphysics, the person that is strong-willed tend not to have a good marriage because the fire just cannot, it just get extinguished in that environment. And so that's like, it's almost like a logically part of their philosophy. And I can see that. I can also see not just with spouse, I don't even have a spouse, but even within the company. Let's give an example. Elon Musk is, maybe you can say whatever you want. Elon Musk is successful. He's very impulsive in some ways and also very resolute in his decision making. He fires people because they didn't answer the question correctly. But if you live with someone like that day after day, are you going to be okay? I don't think anyone will want to do that. So I realized it's really hard. This level of intensity and self-discipline that I apply myself, I know has made me almost unbearable to live with. It's not like I yell at anyone or anything like that. It's like, it's too high of a pressure. I think the wife of Steve Jobs probably also say that. It's this constant high bar. And those same people, these traits are highly correlated with being strong-willed. So strong-willed is a sharp blade. It's really good because it gets things done. It's also really good because they don't give up ever, but it's terrible to live in that environment for themselves even, and for definitely their loved ones. So it's definitely not a good trait, but with everything, there is the flip side of it, which is it's very useful. And that's why people say not giving up, and in my words, being irrationally strong-willed is probably the most important trait of being a founder. I never believed it when YC said that, and I don't die, and etc. And now I think, yeah, that's probably how I'm different from a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends. And I kudos to some of the employees. I think a lot of our employees are also very strong-willed. They're not strong-willed in the sense that the company shouldn't die. They're strong-willed of like, I worked on this product, it better works. Or that they're strong-willed of like, when I came into the company, it's like $10,000 in ARR, and now it's in the mid-single digits of $1 million of ARR. I'm so proud of what we built. It better keeps going. Like, that's strong will. I like that. And so it doesn't have to be like they think from the company's perspective, but they think about whatever they create, like, don't let it die. And I keep thinking on why this is so important and what are the negative side effects of having that mindset. And that's kind of my rant on it. I hope this is useful, and I hope that if you are struggling with the side effects of being strong-willed and that your friends don't understand you and your peers don't, and even your investors is like, I don't get this, and they're like checking out, and for whatever reason, you saw the irony that this is the time you are most strongly believing in your product, congratulations. You might be at the cusp of a revolution. You might be at the cusp of doing something great. My history hasn't played out yet, so I don't know if this is true, but I'm very comfortable with that trait of mine, and I will take the good, the bad, and the ugly. So thanks again for watching. Have a great day. Bye-bye.